Doing the video this time. Use the slideshow that I made that we went through in class, and we'll go through that quickly, and then we'll move into the diagramming, and this may be a more efficient way of doing things. So grammar lesson 3, modifiers. Your objectives for this lesson, you need to define and recognize adjectives and adverbs, so you've got to come up with your own definition that works for you and know them when you see them. And you've got to be able to diagram sentences using adjectives and adverbs in their various different forms. Because if you can diagram them, then you can show that you understand how they work and what they do. So here are your new parts of speech, adjectives and adverbs. We're just focusing on that. An adjective is a word used to describe a noun or a pronoun, and an adverb is a word used to describe a verb, adjective, or another adverb. These will now be added to our other parts of speech. So far we've covered nouns. Remember there's common and proper nouns. Pronouns, which replace nouns, like he, she, it, they, them, that kind of thing. Action verbs and conjunctions. We talked about coordinating conjunctions, but there are, of course, also correlative and subordinating conjunctions. We'll get to those later. So an adjective, as I said, an adjective describes or modifies nouns and pronouns. They give us more information about those nouns and pronouns, modifying our understanding of the word. That's why they're called modifiers. See what I mean? Because if you've got a desk, like what kind of a desk is it? Which one is it? Is it a desk? Is it the desk? Is it your desk? Is it my desk? Is it one desk? Two desks? That's what adjectives tell us. Otherwise, we have pretty bland ideas. Adjectives add spice. So the questions you can answer with an adjective are which one, what kind, and how many. That's the key to deciding if something is an adjective. Does it tell you which one it is? Does it tell you what kind it is? How many it is? Then you're looking at an adjective. So here's some examples. Which one? Here's some things that can tell you which one. This dog, that cat, these slippers, those barnacles, a rose, the flowers, an elephant. Now this, that, these, and those, you might notice that those are also pronouns. So like if I said, give me the slippers, slippers is the noun. If I say, give me those, I might mean the slippers and I'm just using the pronoun those. But in this case, because I'm telling you which barnacles I want, I say those barnacles. Because I'm telling you it's a bunch of barnacles right over there. I'm probably pointing with it, you know what I mean? And a rose, the flowers, an elephant. Those are called articles, and we'll get to those in just a second. What kind? A red rose, a sleepy dog, the snooty cat. These glass slippers, those wet barnacles. That's the kind of adjective most people first think of. You know, if you remember when you were doing adjectives in elementary school, it's usually like red, yellow, rough, soft. Those are the kind of things kids learn at a very early age, and those are probably the easiest adjectives to stick with. So red rose, sleepy dog. What kind of dog is he? He's a sleepy dog. You can say he's an ugly dog, he's a furry dog, he's a fuzzy dog, he's a hairless dog. Those are all adjectives there. How many? That's actually not that complicated, right? How many is 1, 5, 10, 2 glass slippers. So those numbers, they're going to be your adjectives. Articles. Like I said earlier, we touch on our articles. They're the simplest adjectives. They're a, an, and the. They just tell us which one. Like as I said right here, if I ask for a cat, I don't care which cat I get. If I ask for the cat, I have a specific one in mind. And of course, you just use a and an depending on whether the next word starts with a consonant or a vowel. So I said a cat. If I wanted an aardvark, then I'd say an. So they just tell us, specificity, definite and indefinite. The definite article is the. If I say I had the cat, then I want that cat, and if you bring me some random cat, I'm not going to be pleased. Adverbs. Adverbs are like adjectives, but instead of modifying nouns and pronouns, they modify verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. The big questions with adverbs is how, why, when, where, to what extent. We're not going to really touch on why that much yet, because you're starting to look at phrases that work as adverbs to answer the why questions, like those because things. I guess you could just say I climbed the mountain because, but you need to finish that out. But write these down. Adverbs tell us how, why, when, where, to what extent. You should be able to rattle that off because, we'll get to that. This is a little trickier, so we'll spend a few pages on it. A lot of people, what you learn in elementary school usually is that adverbs are like adjectives, but they end with ly. And that's often true, but it's not always true. So if you are focused on just looking for LYs, you're going to miss a lot of adverbs. It's a good place to start, but if you remember your 5 questions, when, where, why, how, and to what extent, you're going to be much more likely to catch all your adverbs. So you can use them to modify verbs, and that's the one that people learn at first. Dogs drool, and then how do they drool? Well, dogs drool prettily, or noisily, or sloppily. And those are your old classic LYs. Pretty is an adjective. Prettily is how he drools. It tells you about the actual verb drool, and he did it in a pretty way. Noisily, slurpily, sloppily. You're taking all these words and adding ly to them, and it becomes suddenly an adverb. Then we've got some whens here. Cats judge. I think cats are pretty judgmental. Cats judge daily, or you could say cats judge often. Cats judge frequently. Cats judge sporadically, like off and on, whenever they feel like it. And then where you've got a couple of options. You could say spiders climb up, spiders climb down, spiders climb left, spiders climb right, spiders climb away. When we get into prepositional phrases, we'll get more options for where, but we won't touch on that yet. Adverbs can modify adjectives, and this is where we start to move past the stuff that you probably learned and forgot in elementary school. The yellow duck swam happily. To what extent is the duck yellow? It's a very yellow duck. It's not kind of a muddy yellow duck, which you could also say, but it's very yellow. So we're no longer using the adverb. Yellow tells us about the duck. Very tells us about how yellow the duck is. The rotten sandwich pouted because nobody wanted it. To what extent is the sandwich rotten? It's not fully rotten, it's partially rotten. That's why he's still able to pout, because if he was completely rotten, he'd probably be dead and he wouldn't be thinking about it, right? So the partially rotten sandwich pouted. And again, rotten tells you about the sandwich. It modifies our understanding of the sandwich. If we just have the word sandwich, we probably think of good food. If we think of a rotten sandwich, we think, oh, it's completely gross. If we think it's partially rotten, then maybe we can cut away some of the good parts. So that gives us more information. So partially tells us about rotten. Rotten tells us about sandwich. And then lastly, I gave you that ly just for fun. Adverbs can modify other adverbs. The dog ran away quickly. How quickly did he run? To what extent? The dog ran away ridiculously quickly. Like something scared him and he ran off. So quickly modifies... let's look at all. There's lots of adverbs because away is an adverb, quickly is an adverb, and ridiculously is an adverb. So away answers what? It says where, right? Where did he run? He ran away. Quickly tells you how he ran. He ran away quickly. So he ran quickly. He didn't run slowly away. And then how quickly did he run? Ridiculously quickly. So ridiculously modifies quickly, quickly modifies ran, and away modifies ran. So let's actually I'm going to pop that up on my screen here, and we will modify that. We'll diagram it right away. And we'll learn diagramming by doing this. So the dog ran away ridiculously quickly. There's our old line, dog. And it's not the first word in the sentence, right? So we don't capitalize it. Dog ran. Subject, what he did. Now, first modifier for ran is away, because that tells you where he ran. And then we hang another modifier off of ran, because it tells you how. Quickly. Okay, so the dog ran away quickly. So notice this. Modifiers hang off of the word that they modify. Away, quickly. Now, how quickly did he run? Ridiculously quickly. We don't hang ridiculously off of ran because he didn't run ridiculously. He ran ridiculously quickly. If he ran ridiculously, he'd probably, he's like doing some silly run. But what was ridiculous is how quickly he ran. So we hang that off of here. Ridiculously. Okay, so we've got ran away quickly, ridiculously. And let's switch colors for our adjectives. Adjectives hang off of nouns. And we've only got one, right? Just the. That's our article right there. Oh, and that should be the capital T because it's the beginning of the sentence. So the dog ran away ridiculously quickly. So what we've got is we've got that same basic diagram, dog ran, but now we've got all these extra things that we can add into it to make it a more interesting sentence. We've still got a ton of extra stuff that we need to be adding to it, but now we're starting to break into interesting sentences. Let's try some more. And go to the next slide. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Come on back. So, yeah, that's my basic template for the diagram. Subject, adjective, adverb. And then adverb, and then adverb modifying another one. So if I said, well, let's take a look. The yellow duckling swam happily. The yellow duckling swam happily. Okay, so what's my subject? Duckling. You always want to go in this order. First you find your subject, then you find your verb. What did the duckling do? He swam. Or it's important that you do these two first. You don't have to do it always subject then verb. If it's easier, sometimes you can find what's happening and then find out who's doing it. All right, so the yellow duckling. We have two modifiers for duckling. Which duckling is it? It's the duckling. So there's our... I always forget to capitalize the first one when it's not the subject. But there's my capital T. And what kind of duckling is it? I'm going to give you a yellow just because. The yellow duckling swam. And how did he swim? Because we're saying how he swam happily. Good. Let's try another one. Great big. Okay. An ugly old swallow sang quite lustily. Okay, so we've got lots of good stuff. So, but our subject is swallow, the verb is sang. Swallow. And of course, swallow is a verb sometimes, but in this case we're talking about a kind of bird. Sang. How did he sing? He sang lustily. Tra-la, it's May, the lusty month of May. And then how lustily did he sing? Was he kind of lusty? Or no, seriously, he was like singing his heart out. So we modify that. What was the word that we used? Quite. And it was an ugly old swallow. Oh, he's ugly and he's still singing happily. So that's nice. We'll switch over to a different color. So we have our article here, and I did it again. Worden did it again. Capital A. Come on, keep your brain up. And ugly. What kind of swallow is he? He's ugly. And he's old. So because these all modify swallow, you just all hang them off of swallow. You have to do a little bit of planning in advance to know that when you're drawing your first diagram that you've got the space to put your modifiers in. Especially when you start adding in phrases and extra clauses, being able to visualize where you're going to go is really helpful. Let's try some more. John's friendly dog died yesterday. Oh, good. That's something that we didn't even really touch on yet. So that's good. Now, what you might be tricked into doing at first is making the subject John, right? Because John is a proper noun, and we just think John must be the subject, but it's not. What's being done? Died is the action. Who died? John didn't die. John's dog died. So dog is our subject. Dog. And like we said, he died. When did he die? Yesterday. And then John's, the apostrophe for the S because John owns the dog. And what kind of a dog is it? We know which dog it is. John's tells us which dog. It's a friendly dog. I guess we could put the period at the end. John's friendly dog died yesterday. Good. Let's try another one. My incredibly old chair creaks quite embarrassingly. Okay, lots of good modifiers there. So, what's being done? What happens? My incredibly old chair creaks. Creaks is the verb. And what's creaking? It's not my, it's the chair, right? So we'll do our article first. Sorry, my possessive pronoun. And then what kind of a chair is it? It's not an incredibly chair, it's an old chair. So, old. And then incredibly tells you to what extent it's old. So, to what extent is answered there. It also has an ly, so those are two indicators as an adverb. Incredibly. My incredibly old chair creaks quite embarrassingly. So, does it creak quite, or does it creak embarrassingly? Embarrassingly tells you how it creaks. Embarrassingly. And then how embarrassingly does it? There's our, to what extent is it embarrassing? Quite. I try not, very is kind of the most common one. I try to avoid doing that if I can. But it's all, it's fine. Very is perfectly fine to use. Just sometimes if you can find a stronger verb, you don't need to use very. Let's change color again just for fun. So, okay, there's my nice straight line. An aging, dilapidated barn. Sometimes use commas in between your adjectives when you're having different things describe your subject. Stood solemnly. So who stood? The barn. Stood. How did he stand? Solemnly. Did I spell that right? Booyah. And here's my indefinite article. Aging, so it's old. And it's dilapidated. Do you guys hear the dog barking upstairs? So it's falling apart. Stood solemnly. But he's okay with it. He's taking it seriously. It's his life. All right, let's see. I think we're starting to run a little bit long on this video. The eager hamster flattered incredibly profusely. All right, we'll do this last one. The eager hamster flattered incredibly profusely. Why don't you actually pause it for a second and diagram it yourself? And then I'll show you how to do it. All right, so pause. Okay, we're back. What's our subject? Hamster. There's no P, even though we kind of pronounce it with a P. Hamster. It's just hamster. And what did he do? He flattered. We don't know who he flattered. We'll get to that next week. The eager. The hamster, the eager hamster, incredibly profusely. So is it incredibly or profusely? It's profusely, because that tells you how he did it, like a lot. And then incredibly, he must have been a real flatterer. There we go. And the period goes here. So now, if you missed it in class, what I had everybody do in groups is come up with a sentence that includes an article, a regular adjective, an adverb to modify that adjective, an action verb, an adverb to modify the verb, and an adverb to modify the adverb. Basically, write a sentence and then fit it into a diagram that looks right like this. Here's your article, adjective, subject, adverb modifying the adjective, verb, adverb modifying the verb, and adverb modifying the adverb. Have fun.